Hi, I'm Lisa Watson from McGrath St George, and here's some helpful tips if you're planning on bidding at one of our auctions on the weekend. Welcome our Principal Matthew King and our McGrath St George Chief Auctioneer Nathan Gallagher. There's a lot of advice out there for buyers on how to bid at an auction. What's the best bidding strategy you've seen?
I think, Lisa, the first thing to understand is that this is a public negotiation. It's a transparent negotiation where buyers are watching you and they're assessing you. So if you're a bidder, it's really important that you act and you move and you behave like you want to own the property.
Like stand your ground.
Stand your ground.
Yep.
Make sure that when the auction starts, you're not up the street behind a bush or behind the signboard. Get front and centre with the auctioneer so he can see you.
Yep.
And make sure the other buyers know that you're here to buy. You're here to buy it.
Okay. And what about knockout bids? Have you ever seen a knockout bid?
I think it's really important to have a strategy. Some auctions can go for 3 minutes, and if you're not prepared and the auction flies, you can get caught off guard.
So if you're planning on waiting till maybe the final bid, that wouldn't be the place to...
Look, I bought at auction with my own property 2 years ago. We had a clear strategy, my wife and I, and we went in there and the strategy was that whatever someone bid, we were going to double it. And we did that.
With your counter bids?
With my counter bids.
Yep.
And we got to the very last cent of what we paid, and the person, the underbidder, actually bought across the street 3 weeks after we bought, and we saw her after the auction because my daughter's the same age as her son, and she said, I said to her, sorry about the auction, I was really sorry that you missed out. And she said to me, look, you just look like you're going to own the property. You just want to keep on going.
Yep.
The reality is, we didn't have one more cent. That was my last bid.
Yep.
But it was about portraying that we were there to buy it.
I bet if your wife elbowed you would have spent a bit more.
She was pulling on my arm, trust me.
I think also, Lisa, the thing is that I've been to many buyers, walked over to a buyer and said, are you prepared to pay more? And they've said, yes, we are. But that buyer looks like that they want to own it. So if you ever want a strategy, and like Nathan has said, and I think most of the people that work within McGrath would go there looking like you're going to own it, but obviously you've got your limit as well. Make sure that you look like you're going to own it. I think that's the key.
Okay, work hard, bid strong.
Exactly.
Now, what do I need to do to bid? What do I need to bring?
Yep, you need to make sure that you bring your driver's licence or some photo ID, so a passport. You need to make sure that you bring some form of currency, and that really is the two options. It's either a cheque or it's a deposit bond. We can't accept cash, we can't accept credit card. Unfortunately, New South Wales legislation hasn't kept up with technology, and we can't do a bank transfer. However, we hope that changes. But for now, you've got two choices, a personal or bank cheque or a deposit bond.
Okay, and do you always need the 10% deposit?
You can always negotiate that prior, but it must be done prior to the auction, and it's much better if it's a couple of days beforehand.
Okay. What if you need to change some terms of the contract?
Typically, Lisa, we would encourage everybody to talk to their solicitor or conveyancer in order to make any changes. However, what we would say is that it is possible for a buyer to arrange for a deposit change, i.e. from a 10% to 5%, or potentially from a cheque to a deposit bond, and a settlement change, which would mean the property could either, if it was 6 weeks, potentially get an extended settlement 12, or shorten it depending on their circumstance.
But you would need to do that beforehand, not on the day?
You'd need to do that beforehand, definitely, and in terms of other changes to the contract, they must be done through the conveyancer and solicitor. So your conveyancer and solicitor must talk to the buyer's conveyancer or solicitor to arrange any of those other changes.
Okay, and Nathan, what if you can't be there to bid and you really want the house?
And look, this happens quite often. Sometimes the buyers are interstate or overseas, or sometimes they just don't want to be there because they're too nervous. So I, as the auctioneer, need an authority that you're bidding on behalf of somebody else. So it can be on the phone, and the person who you represent can be there. There's a form that we have that goes through the details of ID from both parties. We need that form filled out. If you're absentee and you can't be there at all to execute contracts, I, as the auctioneer, can execute a contract on behalf of a purchaser, but I need that form and that relevant details filled out that I'll be signing the contracts on behalf of the buyer, and so that can be done.
We'd recommend, obviously, Lisa, that if that is the case, that you talk to your McGrath agent and you ask your McGrath agent for that form, and that way you'll be covered on all bases.
So I think the key points are to get organised before the auction so you can turn up on the day and bid with absolute confidence. Thanks for the tips, guys.
Thank you.
See you on the weekend.